Welcome back. I've got another laptop to show you, and we'll just start off by talking about what it is. Good place to start. We've got a Lenovo 3000 N100. This doesn't look like much of a laptop because it really isn't. It's just a run-of-the-mill laptop, mid 2000s, 2006 to be specific. But what it represents is part of the evolution of a manufacturer, a company that is now currently one of the biggest PC manufacturers in the world. Prior to Lenovo's acquisition of IBM's personal computing division, they really were unknown, at least in the US. The US was flooded with computer manufacturers, laptops and desktops, and the netbook craze hadn't quite caught on yet. In 2006, you had manufacturers up the wazoo to choose from when you were buying a computer for yourself or for a business. You had, of course, IBM. You had Acer. Asus may have still been in the motherboard business exclusively, but Asus was coming on the pike there. But you had Gateway, Dell, HP, Compaq. Packard Bell was already gone. Quantum may have been still in business. I'm not sure yet. I'd have to look into that. But you had a few brands from the 90s that were dying off, like Quantum and Micron, which used to make desktop PCs. You had, of course, Apple. And there's dozens and dozens and dozens of other companies you could have bought from that I can't even think of right now. At the time, the company that I work for was buying Acers for their laptops, and their desktops are made by a white box manufacturer, just a FYI. And one of our suppliers, our biggest supplier at the time, said, hey, we just got in all of these, we're now dealing with a company called Lenovo, and they're basically taking over IBM's personal computer business, and you should try some of them. So we did. We bought about 10 of these laptops here, and the rest is history. We've continuously been buying from Lenovo ever since. As a matter of fact, that supplier has gone out of business, and yet we still continue to buy from Lenovo, but we're now buying through other distributors. And I am in the process of becoming Lenovo certified, just as I am with Apple products. Little side story there. But anyway, around that time period, the computer business was absolutely flooded in the United States. And again, companies were bleeding red ink. They were disappearing off the face of the earth because they couldn't make ends meet. What Lenovo did was a gutsy move, and it was a smart move. They latched on to one of the biggest players in the business, one of the most well-known, that being IBM, and they started basically taking over their segment of the market. And they did it in a nice, legal, safe way. They bought out IBM rather than competed with them. And for an unknown Chinese manufacturer at the time, that was a very strategic and very business smart move. Because by doing that, they've eliminated one of the biggest competitors in the business. And they've been able to keep the reputation of IBM's products, if not in reality, virtually. At least most consumers and businesses still have, emotional ties to the IBM product line. I know I still have an emotional attachment to the ThinkPad line. So what they've done, at least from that point forward, I'm doing this all from my mind, guys, and I don't have scripts or anything, nothing. I'm just trying to pull this all together in my head. So if I missed something, I apologize. What Lenovo did when I first started buying from them, they had basically two key branches. You had their consumer end. You had maybe three. Consumer, education, business, and government, I think. The four major food groups. And the higher-end business-grade machines, or industry-grade machines, they were still labeled IBM. There was still the IBM ThinkPad line and the IBM ThinkCenter line. And they still said IBM on them, but they were actually Lenovo products. And then you had your light-duty industry machines, your light-duty business machines. and your consumer end products, which are mostly all Lenovo products. What we have here, the 3000 N100 was one of those Lenovo products. It wasn't quite a ThinkPad, but it sure competed well with the ThinkPad line. So the Lenovo branded laptops are essentially your lower grade products. The higher grade products were billed as IBM, or eventually became the ThinkPad line. That sounds about right. I'm thinking back to what I used to, whenever I was asked to buy a machine for someone, I would go to the Lenovo site and I would build what I wanted, and then I'd go to my distributor and see if they could get it for me. That's basically what I do today. Today, I actually have access to all of the configuration data for what Lenovo sells, stuff that even consumers don't see, and even business purchasers don't see. My supplier has actually given me access to it, and I can see all the different configurations that every machine is sold as, which is very nice. Makes ordering so much easier. I can get them with any size hard drive, any amount of memory, whatever's available, I can see it. I couldn't see it then, though. I didn't have access to it then. But anyway, the 3000 N100 came in about, I don't know, half a dozen flavors, and they started out with the Intel Core Duos and Celerons. This is one of the later models. This is actually a Core 2 Duo. It's a T5500 Core 2 Duo. That's the Celeron Napa. It's the Celeron Napa configuration, which is the Intel 950 GMA chipset, or GMA 950. And so it has the Intel Mirom T5500 CPU, running at 1.6 gigahertz, I believe. But a lot of the other 3000 N100s feature different processors, different video chipsets, different just everything in between. Different memory, hard drive configurations. A lot of the ones that we got initially were 80 gig models. This is one of the later models, so it has I think it's a 120 hard drive. Of course, SATA. And yeah, one thing that we were famous for doing is buying laptops over the course of an entire year. So we'd start off with one model, then we'd have like 8 other versions of the same damn thing, which makes building images for these really challenging. Because if I had to build one image for this laptop, I would have to package that image with every other driver that I had with every other version of this laptop, and then deploy those drivers later. So I apologize if I'm bouncing back and forth here and there, but if this doesn't make any sense to you, I'm sorry. Also, one of the little tidbits of information I want to throw out there is this laptop was made during the Windows Vista rollout period. It was originally shipped with Windows XP and was billed as being Windows Vista capable. That got Microsoft into a lot of trouble because a lot of machines were billed as Windows Vista capable when they in fact were not. But that's really irrelevant at this point because it's actually running Windows 7 at the moment, and it's running it quite well. Let's see how she runs. But one more thing I want to point out. This laptop it has been pampered its entire life. It has never really been deployed. So it looks brand new. I assure you it's not. This laptop spent most of its time on a shelf. God is my witness. One of the problems with this particular product line is it was painted rather than molded in color. And I'm a very strong opponent of painted laptop surfaces because they're prone to wear and tear, and they eventually show that very rapidly. This particular one, it has a few marks here and there, nothing serious, but it does show a few signs of wear. I mean, if you just rub your fingernails the wrong way on this surface, it scratches it. But Lenovo really wasn't thinking when they designed this, because they also painted the bottom of the machine, which is so stupid. In any normal use environment, this laptop would look like trash after 6 months. And the other thing I want to point out is this particular model, the 3000 series, I find had a lot of battery issues. We went through a lot of batteries on these laptops. We have 10 of these laptops, and we probably replaced all 10 of them at least once. One of the symptoms I found is that the batteries would eventually short out internally, and they would prevent the laptop from powering on. Towards the later section of the product life cycle, at least in our inventory, I started disabling the batteries internally and using them as basically filler panels. In this case, this battery, I actually took the connector out of the housing. I left everything inside. I just cut the connector out and glued the housing back together again. I had to. I had no choice. So this battery is basically just a dummy. So unfortunately, this laptop has no battery life of any kind. I am going to try to find a good battery for it. I mean, it's a nice little laptop. It's in good condition. I may fix it up for my mom, actually. She's in need of some kind of a computer at this point. And eventually I'll do a video on her laptop. She has one of the absolute consumer-grade versions of a Lenovo laptop. I forget what model it is. But it has had a lot of hardware issues, unfortunately, over the past year or two. And it's getting to a point where I'm going to have to either put some money into it or get her something else. And this might be that answer. She's not really using it for much, and something like this would just get the job done. I'll have to think about that. Anyway, let's fire it up. Unfortunately, I had to retire my Sony Vaio. For those of you who remember the Vaio, it was basically my sidekick laptop for the past like 7 years, and I was using it for my my Apple II project. And in another video, we're going to actually go through the process of setting up an ADT Pro system again, for those of you who can benefit from that. The ADT Pro software is what allows you to bootstrap any Apple II and actually start it off from nothing if you have no media of any kind. So one of these days I'm going to do that. I'm going to be setting up my HP, my little mini HP laptop to do that job. It doesn't have an optical drive, which is fine because it doesn't need one. But because of its small size, it can be shelved away very easily and pulled out when needed. So we're starting this machine up, and it's got 4 gigs of RAM. I did mention earlier that it was an Intel Core 2 Duo. The T5500 is the first Core 2 Duo chip. It is. I could have sworn it was 64-bit compatible, but apparently not, because I remember I couldn't get the 64-bit version of Windows 7 to install on this when I built that image. But come to think of it, it might have been on an older version of this laptop, which may have had an older processor. So I think it was a Core Duo, and the Core Duo, if I'm not mistaken, was a 32-bit system. But nevertheless, here she is up and running, and I'll pull up the DXDiag on it so you can see what the full specs are. It's got the original hard drive in it, which is a 120, I think. No, it might even be smaller than that. I think it's an 80. Yeah, it looks like it might even be an 80. What's the model on that? The Hitachi, it's an 80. Yeah, it's an 80 gig drive. So it's got the original 80 gig drive in it, which is 47% full. Alright, let's see what we got. Yeah, Intel Core 2 T5500, 1.66, 2 gigs of RAM. Bumping this up to 4 gigs won't take much at all. It will do 4. It might even do as much as 8. Although I haven't verified that yet. It's got the Intel 945 Express chipset and the GMA 950. I believe that's the video chip. Let's confirm that. The Intel Centrino laptops it's basically a package of different Intel chips, including wireless, basically sold as like a package deal. And I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how those chips are laid out, if one chip does more than one function or not. But they're geared expressly towards portable computing, and it's basically Intel's low-powered, high-performance chipset for notebooks, if you will. Not necessarily high performance, but geared specifically towards notebook use. So low heat output and low power consumption, if I recall. Let's see. Let's take a look at our video driver. I'm actually kind of curious about that. I think it's part of the embedded chipset. Yeah, Intel 945 Express chipset family. So it's a group of chips. And this might even have the Draft N wireless. I'm not positive if it has it or not. But one of the later versions of the Napa chipset package included a wireless card with a Draft N compatibility. It seems like yesterday when 802.11n was the latest and greatest, and now it's like, it's expected. It's normal, mandatorium. Yeah, Pro Wireless ABG. So this doesn't, if it has the N, it might just be a matter of a firmware or software update. But it appears to be just the ABG adapter at this point, or at least that's what's enabled on it. So, alright. Let's go over the, basically the whole layout of the machine. Now, because this machine has been very seldomly used, obviously, as I point out in all of my videos where this is an actual thing, there really is no sign of wear on the keyboard wrist pad area. The keys, again, when you're looking at vintage laptops and you're collecting them as a hobby, these are things you want to look for. Look at the keyboard. If it looks like this, and usually you're going to find either right here or right here, depending on the handedness of the person using it, you're going to find shiny spots worn into the keys. That doesn't mean it's a bad machine. It just means that the device was used, kind of like when you're buying a used car and you look at the gas and brake pedals and the steering wheel, and you look at all the controls to see how much usage or how heavily used the car was. In this case, how much keyboard time this laptop has had. The enter key and the shift keys are two big indicators. I'll tell you a story. I bought an HP Pavilion ZE5700 brand new in 2004. By the time I sold it in 2008, the enter key and the shift keys were basically worn completely off. The shift key was just shiny and glossy and smooth. The enter key, same thing. Spacebar, all the heavily used keys were completely worn. They still worked fine, but and also all the paint that was on the edge of the keyboard area was worn off, because I used that laptop heavily over the 4 years I owned it. So these are all indicators of wear. Also, look at any painted knobs and buttons, and they should have all the paint still intact like these do. This means that these buttons were hardly ever used, if ever. This is where the paint wears off the most, the volume controls and the power key. And when you have no real noticeable wear on those keys, that's a good sign, especially when it comes to the collectability or preserve worthiness, if you will, of the device. But one thing I want to point out, Lenovo started out with the orange color scheme on their keyboards, and that's something they, I believe, still do to this day. But all of their function keys were highlighted in orange, and the optical drive button is orange. So what do we have for ports? We've got 4 USB 2.0 ports. There's 3 on this side, and 1 over here. Now let me get on another rant. When it comes to designing laptops, I think we've gone backwards a little bit. We've done something very, very dumb, and this seems to be a thing even to this day. Where back in the old days, all the ports were in the back, where they belong. But as laptop design has evolved or changed over the years, the manufacturers have started putting the batteries in the back, which prevents you from putting the ports where they should be. See, in the older laptops, the ports were in the back, the battery was somewhere in the front here. I don't know why this changed, or whose ingenious idea this was. But when they reversed the layout of the componentry, we've been forcing the connectors to be more and more in the way. Having USB ports right here, I think, is definitely a problem. You know, especially if the laptop lives on a desk for most of its life. Because obviously, if you have cables sticking out of here, they're going to run right in front of the optical drive. When you go to open this drive, you're going to have to move those cables out of the way. That's stupid. Alternatively, you could use the one USB port and a hub. I mean, that could be done. But it's still stuff in the way where it shouldn't be. The Ethernet port is right here. That's a bad place for it. It should be closer to the back. Just one little problem I have with the way laptops are made today. It kind of upsets me because it's not very well thought out. You know, you've got your VGA port right here, which is fine and dandy. You know, but anyway, just a little pet peeve. Headphone jack right there, right where it shouldn't be. I think the headphone jack should be closer to the rear, but you know, who am I, right? And here's another thing. These LEDs, which indicate the battery, sleep, wireless functions, etc., they should be up here. No? I think they should be. And the Wi-Fi switch is located, I mean, this is actually not a bad place for it. I think it's easily accessible and it's not as likely to get hit accidentally. I can tell you, as somebody who supports computers and their users, the amount of people who come to me with wireless problems, who have actually turned their wireless off using the hard switch accidentally, that happens more often than you'd like to think. But, you know, a lot of the newer laptops don't even have those switches. It's all done through the keyboard commands. But it is a nice little laptop. It actually has Firewire. It's got a mini 1394 port here. It's got one PCMCIA slot right there. We've got an SD card slot right there, which is kind of handy to have. I wonder if I have my is it in here? No, it's not. I've got it might be over here. Yeah, I wonder if it'll work with this. This is a 110 megabyte flash disk, which is great for transferring documents and data from an older computer to a newer one. Well, as long as it has, the adapter. One more point I want to make, because this is part of the Lenovo line, it doesn't have the eraser head mouse. They made sure there was a clear distinction between the Lenovo products and the IBM or Think brand products. And one of the key separators is the inclusion of an eraser head nub mouse. You'll never find that on a Lenovo product that is not a Think product. In fact, I think the days of having those on even IBM or Think branded products is coming to a close. Not that I know anything that isn't public, but I have a gut feeling that those are going away. Hey, it works. So there, it actually opened it right up. So this is Windows 7, and it is actually opening up this little adapter, or this little, of course it shows that there's nothing on it. That's not good. Let's try that again. It reads it, but it don't read it. Oh, there it is. It reads it. Doom 1. Apple II emulator, Crazy Cars, Super Paint. Alright, I wonder if, I wonder how Doom would work on this. I wonder if it'll work. These appear to be, show me extensions, please. Oh yeah, wrong button there. Where is it? I have it set to details. I keep forgetting where things are. Excuse me. I want to see the file extensions, but it's not showing them to me. It's got all my saved games on it. It's not showing me the extensions though. Yeah. Yeah, it's not launching anything. I was hoping that it would just open it right up. Alright, here's what I've got to do. Yeah, it's hiding all the extensions. Let's go to folders and select show extensions. Show hidden files. Uncheck hide. Always show menus. Display full path. Hide empty drives. And turn that off. Uncheck hide to protected files. Alright. Apply. 2 folders. Okay, there we go. Alright, let's open this back up. It's still not showing extensions. Why not? Oh wait, this might be the Mac version. Which wouldn't have an extension now, would it? Probably not. No, this might be the Mac version. Oh, well. What else is on here? Yeah, this is all Mac stuff. I forgot. This is, yeah, this doesn't have any Windows stuff on it, or any DOS stuff on it. It's all Mac. Maybe not. No, wait. Yeah, this is all Mac. Glider, Mac, yeah, okay. So never mind. At least it, hey, at least it works, right? Okay, well that was fun. That's basically a backup of everything that was on my G3 Kanga, if I'm not mistaken. Like, you know, these are nice to have. If you're into vintage computers, these are gold, because you can use these to transfer data from a vintage Mac to a vintage Mac laptop with a with one of these. And they're fast. They're quick, and they pretty much will hold your data forever. I've had this. I should have bought more of these. These are $10 a piece. I bought one. I should have bought like 10 of them, because if I had known how much use I would get out of that thing, I should have thought about that. But now they're hard to find. It's like, you know, I almost never see them anymore. So don't show hidden files. I'm going to change that back. There we go. Anyway, well, this was fun. Thank you for watching and being there to enjoy this this little whatever this was. And definitely keep those old machines alive. But as I was saying, I had to retire my VAIO. The VAIO was it was getting ragged. Let's put it that way. The VAIO is the one that I used to use for the data transfer to the Apple II and all the bootstrapping. And unfortunately, that machine was just getting too ragged. The CPU fan was starting to make noise. You know, it had a crack in the upper case. I couldn't get any memory for it to bring it up from 512, and I didn't want to spend the money that everyone seems to be wanting for the memory upgrades. The battery was no longer holding a charge. It was like, okay, let's put this sucker out of its misery. So I did. It was a good machine. I got, you know, when it was thrown away 7 years ago, you know, I was able to add another 7 years to its life. I mean, you can't keep these machines around forever, especially if you use them. Unfortunately, everything manufactured ever has had a death clock built right in. and that VAIO's death clock was running out, unfortunately. It was amazing that it lasted as long as it did. So I had to retire that machine. Unfortunately, I had a little ceremony for it. It's gone. I went to the recycling bin, but I assure you, it was beat to hell. But so I got to pick out a machine from my collection that I can now use for Apple II bootstrapping. I was going to use this one, but it's a bit too big and bulky and a bit too powerful for what I'm going to use it for. The VAIO was extremely slow. Very limited in its abilities. It did have a working, and I didn't realize that it had a working CDRW drive until I burnt a CD with all of the software that I had on there for Apple II conversion. So I was able to burn a disk before I retired it. It is gone. it is gone and disposed of. But I have a nice replacement ready to go into its spot. And we'll do another video at some other point in time where we'll talk about that laptop and maybe some other stuff. So thanks for watching. Until then.